it was just like falling out of bed, or falling off a log, kind of show, where, oh, that's going to be super fun.
Welcome to Theater Thursdays. We will be talking all things Top Girls. I'm Gracie Belt. I graduated from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville in 2018, and I had the pleasure of playing Angie in this production of Top Girls. We are coming to you from the native lands of the Yuchi, Muskogee Creek, and the Cherokee Nations. Today, we are joined by Mike Ponder, sound designer extraordinaire. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
I am Mike Ponder. I am a longtime sound designer down here at the CBT, like 23 years now, and I was the guy on Top Girls with Casey, our fabulous director.
You've always been such an important part of the CBT. And okay, Top Girls, here we go. Carol Churchill, we're Great Britain, and it's the 80s, wave of feminist movement, and how does this sound designer help tell the audience about the time and the space of the play that's going on?
Well, it can be from music and or obviously the normal sound design elements of where you are physically, but those things can intermingle, and music has its own time and place. So it actually can tell you more than a bird or something like that.
Yeah. It definitely has a lot of the emotional information, I guess. Like music carries a lot more than just sound.
Production, just the style of the production or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of production, how did the design team figure out the concept of so Top Girls has, the fantasy dream-like world and the realistic parts. How did the design team come up with a way to combine those things? I know that music and sound design had a lot to do with it.
I think Carol Churchill, the playwright, caused that, or accomplished that just by the type of the way she writes and what it's about, and how crisp and wonderful it is. I mean, I was never confused on that play. I mean, it's got a lot of meaning and stuff, but the way it moves between the time periods is pretty understandable, given what they're doing and saying, in my opinion. But how do we fit them together? How did we fit them together? Yeah. Is by taking her clues like you're supposed to from the playwright, and so at least my initial impression, and I'm not sure who else thought this, but was that Top Girls made me think of fashion shows and the runway.
Right.
And so we had and so I picked music that had the fashion show runway feel. I picked music that was from the 80s. I made music, and it was in the techno sort of style, techno pop or Brit pop, yeah. And which gave us a lot of that driving runway feel. And when I had to soften out, I could go to more Brit pop bands that still use the same type of production, just a nicer feel and more melody. The reason it's based on techno is that we all got the idea of, and we've already said this about basing it on a fashion show for the scene changes. And so immediately it was going to be that kind of 80s fashion show runway music, and which drove home the major theme, feminist theme, the play for me, just fashion shows, yeah. Period, or something to talk about in feminism. And they all kind of move around like robots, just because that's what the style has always developed to be in fashion shows. And they gets them out and back, bringing out furniture and chairs to reset for the next scene, and it takes them so far out of their characters that it makes a great break between, because they're going to go to play a 20th century person, next,
Yeah, I remember it being so highly energetic, like you truly could not ignore what was going on. I like we were the actors, we were on stage changing clothes, like because we would go from like these fantasy characters and into the realistic characters, and like the fashion show music and the concept, like it made so much sense for this production. It's like, of course, Carol Churchill, she did have the clarity in the text, but it was so cool that in the intimate space of the lab that the music and the sound design was able to do that. So speaking of the music, I know something that I really, really liked about this production was that the historic characters that were in that first scene, they had themes, which was like I just the coolest thing to me because it helped like solidify so much. Can you tell me about like your inspiration or like your process of like choosing music or finding music for these characters?
Well, the runway style electronic music is the perfect vehicle to add things that don't go with it on top of it.
Totally.
Sometimes it's just like weird little snippets of people speaking or phone messages, which I've done on other plays and stuff. So in this instance, I was able to put some monk recordings I found in there for Pope Joan, her theme, because the whole show is built on a techno Britpop theme, to go with the time, like we were talking about a moment ago, but most importantly, because it's built that way, you could put something completely different on top of it.
Can you tell me about another musical inspiration that you had for a character in this play?
It's not entirely a specific character. It's for, I believe it was the more of the intro for the play, but it was something I made from that famous section of Tales of Hoffmann by Offenbach, where I'm absolutely unable to do it, but I'll go, and she keeps going higher, but she goes slower and slower. That character is a robot that Hoffman has invented, as his girlfriend or whatever, and she winds down on stage, and they rewind her and all that stuff. So it was, to me, if somebody thought about specifically what that was, they would realize that it meant something about the play too. About women being made to fit within roles, if you will.
Mike, can you tell me about Joyce's theme and the inspiration behind that?
It's more. It was the family theme, and it's such a devastating moment in the play. But staying with the palette, as we like to call it, of the electronic music, I just eased it up and made it more melodic, and a little kinder. And my models for that would be like Yaz, Alison Moyet, and or the Eurythmics in particular, and lots of feminism from those guys in their songs. But the style that particularly the Eurythmics developed is what I had in my mind when I was making that part.
Do you ever get overwhelmed with choices, like when you're looking for source material?
No, because it's so specific. It's really funny to go through the rules that you have made for yourself, or the director and yourself have made for the play. Like, I'll have a set of rules before I even talk to the director about, and I'll use those rules to pick ideas. But then often changes a lot with what the director's trying to do, or the way the process is going to be.
Well, outside of music, Mike, like, what else does a sound designer do to like set the mood or the tone in a play?
Well, obviously the normal sound design elements that aren't music, they often blend across each other pretty heavily. And the great Hungarian director Peter Laszlo once said, that the whole play has to be, to me, said that the whole play has to be a piece of music, a single piece of music. So the sound design part, that isn't music, needs to be music as well, and it needs to help the places, in between music. It needs to be musical, as if it were music coming from the same sort of idea.
It is so important and helpful for like the actors and the audience to get to the world, even though you don't necessarily see it, but you hear it, and like, because you hear it, you kind of feel it.
I'm a little too into it, and because I really do find meaning in the sound of nature and birds and so forth, and just even things that were caused by humans that you hear outdoors. That's in a way a natural thing. It's very hard to make something sound like it's outdoors, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a theater and there's like carpeted walls and curtains and everything. So yeah, you have to bring everyone outside with you. That's so cool. Mike, can you tell me more about like any favorite projects that you've had over the years?
Metamorphoses in the carousel with a 4,000 gallon pool that I sat adjacent to with a 40-gallon fish tank and made weird water noises.
Nice.
And I had a record player that I made scratching sounds on only live.
So cool.
And guitar and a couple of weird, a few other little musical things. I loved doing King Lear with Jed Diamond directing, and an undergrad that I had a particularly good time working with. He and I bowed cymbals and did some very unnatural modern music, which is from the 50s.
Yeah.
Let's see, The Illusion, where I used opera again, like I did in this show for Pope Joan, and Dead Man's Cell Phone again with Casey in the lab, mostly in the lab, but some in the carousel that I've gotten to do more fun things. And then, of course, 3 different Christmas carols, which, it's traditional, but the scary parts aren't, and that's what I get to do.
Oh, yeah. Mike, that's awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm so glad to get to talk to you.
Yeah, it's so good to see you virtually. Yeah. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for another Theater Thursdays. We'll see you next time.